Hey guys, this is a third video I'm making all kind of at the same time, but I'm going to release them a few days apart. And in this video I want to talk about another thing that I've read and studied in the past month that ties into like all CFS, fibromyalgia, all the TMS, whatever you want to call it, these symptoms, that unexplained symptoms that we're dealing with and trying to get better from. And that is this area having to do with how the brain, how pain works in the brain, that the neuroscience of it, yeah? So often we talk about it from the psychological angle, psychophysiological angle, the stress response, the physiology of stress in the body. But this is a complex thing. We're human beings, we're complex, and it can be helpful to understand things from different perspectives. And this might already be well known to you or not, but it's always good to review and to remind ourselves. So I'm going to talk about pain, but the same thing applies to fatigue and many other symptoms, right? So I'm just going to review what I learned from, I think the researcher's name is Lorimer Moseley, but he's not the only one. There are a number of, there's been, in the past decade or 2 decades, there's been an increase in research in pain perception and how pain works in the brain and stuff like that. I just want to summarize what I've learned and hope you find this helpful. Basically, the idea is this. That it used to be thought that, okay, you hurt your arm and the pain signal is sent to the brain and then you feel pain. That's not how it works. There are these things called nociceptors that send dangerous signals to the brain, basically, but then it's up to the brain to analyze and do a certain calculation and decide, should I turn pain on or not, and how much. And in order to arrive at that decision, the brain does a lot of different things. It depends on the context you're in, right? So the idea is, like, soldiers in battle can sometimes get their arms blown off and not feel any pain. Like, the most severe injuries actually turn out not to be painful oftentimes, because and what it all comes down to basically is this realization that kind of makes sense, seems common sense, but now it's been sort of scientifically established, if you will, that brain uses pain as a protective mechanism, and the pain is not just in that one spot that hurts, but it's not just in the brain, actually. That's another kind of misconception. It's kind of everywhere, but yes, the brain is the central organ that does the calculus. Oh, should turn on pain? No? How much? And the key thing in that is like that emotional stuff and the level of safety or threat that you perceive will impact on how much pain you experience. So if you're for example, in an unfamiliar environment, you'll feel more pain. If you're just under a lot of emotional distress, just life stress and stuff, you'll feel more pain because those regions in the brain are intertwined, and it's I'm not going to pretend to be like a neuroscientist and be like, I actually know some of the anatomy, but like I know just enough to be dangerous, so I'm not going to throw around the amygdalas and the hypothalamuses around here, and I just want to convey the general idea and sort of how it helps practically with the recovery. And so that's basically an area that I've been paying attention to. And in sort of other research, fibromyalgia researchers have long established, I don't know how long, but at least a decade as I recall, this idea has been established of central sensitization, right? That indeed there are changes in the brain that make us, like even a light touch can sometimes be perceived as painful, in people with fibro, like in severe cases. It just hurts to even lightly touch. And it's throughout the body. And remember, this is it does not just apply to pain. Fatigue is also a protective signal that a brain generates saying, hey, you need time to recharge. But there could be glitches, there could be context and situations that cause the brain to send the wrong signal, right? Or to exaggerate the signal, to over-amplify the signal. So this idea of central sensitization in fibromyalgia has been established in the research. And I remember reading this research and saying, well, fuck, I'm centrally sensitized. That's why I'm feeling all this. And that's one way to react to this research. The thing is, researchers, they have to be, when you read a paper, they can only say like what their research has shown, and they're very careful with how they state things. And they tend not to talk about solutions in their papers unless the paper is specifically focused on like what can we do, like clinical treatment, whatever. But usually when you read about how things work in the brain, these are not really aimed at people like us reading it, looking for practical solutions. So the result is often, like when I used to read the papers, be like, oh, fuck, central sensitization, I'm fucked, this is why it's happening, It was just a confirmation for why you'll never get better for me, For why I'll never get better. Oh, look, there's this thing in the brain and it's just fucked. But in the context of what I know now today, it helps. I draw a different lesson from it. And I mean, the central thing is that it can be desensitized. And if we address anxiety, if we address emotional distress and certain habits, we can reverse this process. It's doable. People have done it. There are many recovery stories. Yeah, and just understanding that this is how this thing works, and if interpreted correctly, can already reduce the level of stress. Because in the past, maybe you're worried, well, I don't know, I have something, I don't know, the doctors don't know. Now there's a certain understanding. So yeah, anyway, that's what I've been focused on learning a bit more about, reviewing sort of the latest thing, because I used to read a lot of research, and then I stopped because I found it was just I was not reacting well, and I had to sort of not pay attention to it for a while. And now I just pay attention a little bit just to see what's the latest, like what are they thinking now, because I'm always updating my models and my understanding of this thing in hopes of getting better, maybe a little bit quicker, and maybe helping out some of you guys, to get there a little faster. The most important thing is we can get better, man, and it's a process. Usually it does take a while. Some people get better pretty quickly, but usually, step by step. So yeah, that's the last thing I want to say in this recording session. Let me know your thoughts, guys, what you think, how you're doing. Just comment. I like to hear from you sometimes, and peace. See you next time. Bye-bye.